My guest today is someone who has proved that carving your own path with conviction and self-belief can lead to success. His passion, backed by strong family values, led him to launch his own enterprise and position India as one of the leaders in medical technology globally. Please welcome Himanshu Baid, the Managing Director of Medicure, to this episode of Duolouges. So Himanshu, thank you for agreeing to do this episode of Duolouges with me. It's a pleasure to be here at your office. Medicure is the organization you lead. It would be interesting to know from you your journey in particular. And you started off as a professional, like a lot of us do, went on your own entrepreneurial journey. It's been a while, so it would be interesting to know about that. So thank you very much for agreeing to do this. To begin with, it would be insightful to know from you about Medicure, the organization. I think it clearly reflects the true ethos of what Indian companies should be doing. In the first instance, empowering and democratizing technology. In your case, it is medical technology. And also in this whole process, making Indian enterprises competitive on a global scale. So that is what I believe you're doing. So, but tell us more about Medicure to begin with.
See, Medicure was formed in 1995. And the whole idea was that when we looked at the Indian landscape of medical devices, we couldn't find many companies where we're making consumable devices. Most of the products were being reused in the country, and 95% was imported. And we looked at the whole ecosystem, the supply chain, raw material availability, machines. There was nothing in India at that time. And fortunately, my younger brother Rishi, he was studying in the US.
Right.
He also, worked in few MedTech companies for a very short while, but maybe few months here and there. But the whole ideation came from my father. That, we need to do something in this industry. And he met few consultants, to understand about the business. He visited a lot of these trade shows, global trade shows, understanding how this industry is spanning globally. And of course, India was nowhere in the picture at that time.
Right.
But we imported equipments from, different countries. It was US, Europe, it was, Japan, China, everywhere, whatever we could find. We started, we took bits and pieces together, and capital was a big constraint at that time. We borrowed money at 21% from banks, and even that money was not available. Even the banks were not ready to fund. At that time, there was no startup concept.
True.
We started this company with zero, but there was no startup concept.
Right.
But there were some few venture funds which contributed to the capital of the company. We did a small IPO in 96. Everybody asked me, why did you go for an IPO? And I said, we had no choice, because if we really wanted money, I had to, return this money back to investors, especially the venture funds. And they said, we'll have to do an IPO. So on the hindsight, I don't know whether it was the right time or not, but of course we did that IPO.
Sure, yeah.
And that technology mindset, I'm an engineer, Rishi is my brother's engineer. And of course, we have three brothers, of course. Vishal stays in Jaipur, takes care of the Jaipur facilities. But I think that mindset of technology from day one really helped us to build this business. And always doing something different. Because we saw there were many products in the market, but how would we make inroads into that hospital or into that country by a similar Me Too device? Because we were not still the cost competitive player in the market. Because there were bigger players available, there were companies in China making cheaper products already, because China was already a developed, let's say manufacturing base. So for us, it was always adding some differentiator in a product. Learning from the market, from the customer. Customer could be a distributor, could be a doctor, could be a nurse, and then embedding into the product.
Wonderful.
And those differentiators helped us to gain market access.
Right.
And open those doors which were closed for many Indian companies.
Right.
And of course, we had a lot of trouble getting into Indian market, because the moment people saw, where are you making a product? We said, okay, in India. India where? In NCR region. So NCR was not known for medical devices.
Right.
And people thought maybe we are just recycling those products or using recycling plastics. So it took time to get that momentum in India. But, and also quality was a concern because people said, currently where are your products being used? And we had no answer to those questions. But gradually, I think as time progressed, we were able to build that trust and, open some doors with some hospitals. And I think that was a turning point for us.
Wonderful. I know that you started off as a professional and then would have been a point like a crossroad of a sort. You decided to embark on an entrepreneurial journey yourself. And tell us something about that. And also tell us that when you were growing up, what was going through your mind? And when you now look back, were you thinking that this is what you would be?
I don't think so, honestly. Absolutely not. I think, in that life journey, and I think some people play a very important role. And I think to me, my parents played a very, very important role because they were very progressive. First, they let me go out of the country and, take up a job in Philips in Germany. And that was very unheard of in our family, which was a joint family. And
that was early 90s.
Early 90s, exactly, right. 1991.
Right.
And got back, being a part of a Marwari family, got married quickly in these kind of families. And I got married when I was probably 24, close to 24. And then I had an opportunity to do something different in the family or be part of the whole family business. So I took the other side and said, I'll be part of the family business because there's no other thing I could do at that time. Few years down the line, I got frustrated. I got choked. And I couldn't, whatever learnings I got from my education, from my training and my job overseas, I could put them into work. So I went back to my dad and he said, okay, you should do something different. And he allowed me to think.
How old were you then?
I was 25, 26.
25, okay.
And he allowed me to think and take that, plunge. This project of medical devices, what was his brainchild? We gave the project to the larger family. Okay, we want to do this together. Everybody said no. And then I had a complete rejection from the family. But I still wanted to go ahead and take that risk in my life. So I moved from Jaipur to Delhi, take that risk with my brothers. And I think I'm very fortunate that we all stick together. And there are some people who helped me through this process, through this journey. To me, they are still my guardian angels.
What does luck mean for you?
I think, yes, definitely I was lucky to have those kind of guardian angels in my life, especially my parents first, because I remember my mom telling me that, okay, go. Because I was leaving from Jaipur, my home, and moving to a different place where I didn't have any access to anything.
Right.
And going from a comfort life to completely a discomforted life. But she was the first one to tell me, go and do what you want to do in your life. So you need these kind of support within the family and outside the family also.
Right.
Where those guardian angels play a very important role. So the family also needs to be very supportive. And I totally have to give to my parents, for that. Right. They didn't blink even an eye when I said I want to go out and do something different.
Right.
And I didn't get a single penny from my joint family business. So I went with an empty pocket. There was no startup concept at that time. But going to banks, begging for money, trying to convince them to invest in your project. So that was the difficult times which I have gone through. But I think I never gave up.
But what was fueling your ambition then? Today, when we look back, we can always challenge our decisions or appreciate our initiatives. But then, being very young, what was fueling? Because MedTech then was not something which was like a rising sector, so to say.
See, I think to me, it was like I wanted to do something different in life. And I saw few people who were different and completely achieved completely different things. And only because of hard work. Hard work and being very persistent and what they were doing. So to me, I got that inspiration from those people. That yes, if they can do, let me also give it a try. Because that is my only chance. If I get more embedded into the family business, maybe next 5 years, 7 years, I'll never get that chance again. Right. Because then you have your family life and you continue for what you're doing. And there you have a set pattern. Here, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
There's enough opportunity in this industry because the industry size is over $500 billion. Look at our pharma industry. It's done phenomenally well. Why can't we replicate the same model in MedTech? Why can't there could be 100 companies in India doing revenue 100, 200, 300, $500 million and go global.
Himanshu, when you draw this comparison, like my understanding is limited of the pharma industry, but I hear that APIs were a bottleneck
Yes.
at a certain set of time. Would there be a similar bottleneck in the medtech industry also?
See, I think MedTech, the technology is the bottleneck because we didn't invest in
So
R&D.
if people invest into technology consistently for a few years, we can make a difference.
We can make a lot of difference.
So I
and
think
I think the ecosystem is already getting there. Today, a lot of electronic industry, like your industry, has a lot of big support to medtech industry because today any MRI machine monitors, any
requires
equipment we
electronics.
need to make that need electronics. Anything which is going to be based on AI needs electronics. You know, chips, everything. So I think there is already an ecosystem getting developed in India.
Right.
We have the best software engineers, we have the best hardware engineers in the country.
Right.
So we have the talent.
Right.
Only thing is we have to harness this together.
Right.
Money is no constraint.
Right.
And I think somebody will have to take a plunge. And I think, okay, there may be
How should this plunge look like? You know, creating captive capabilities to invest into design sometimes comes at a very high cost. I think that is the only dilemma. People do have the intent. And in our country, I've noticed that utilization of industry academia partnerships is not as much as it would have happened in the West.
Yeah.
Do you think those are the solutions?
So that could be one of the solutions in my view. But I think the bigger issue is India needs to attract few large companies to come and make in India.
Okay.
Take example of China, Taiwan, for example. They actually brought in handheld some large companies to invest in those countries. A great example in India could be, Maruti Suzuki.
Sure.
They came to India,
Built the entire supply
build
chain.
the whole supply chain in the country in the next 20 years.
Yeah, true.
So in MedTech, if few large companies can be, brought in, by the government, held for next 5-10 years, I'm very sure the whole ecosystem will develop very, very quickly.
Right.
Same thing has happened in China. A few large companies came in there. They developed the vendors, the supply chain, and those big guys became global vendors.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. Yes. So I believe this is a similar framework oriented approach which is happening into electronics and several sectors.
Yes.
I agree to you as we discussed that a lot of cross pollination happens with the ideas which cut across. So I think a similar approach is needed, and I believe that with the focused approach where Government of India, when they embarked on the journey of enabling Atmanirbhar Bharat and subsequently entrusted responsibility to the scale committee and subsequently to CII and FICCI. So I believe that framework is now starting to get built.
And I think we are on a momentum already. I think there's a momentum which is being created. I think there's a very positive momentum.
Right.
And I think the brand India, also I think the brand India is changing. Today globally we see more respect for Indian companies, Indian brand, made in India products. And I think that if we can accelerate that, I think India would become a powerhouse. Not even for MedTech, but a lot of other products which can be made out of India for the global markets.
Yeah, it is catalyzing, and as you rightly mentioned, that it's kind of compounding. So the expansion of our capability and also of our brand as a country is going to happen. And I see this acceptance when I travel abroad towards the West. Also, the recognition of Make in India has significantly changed. You go back.
Look at us. We are exporting to 125 countries.
Absolutely.
And it is all made in India products.
Right.
And today we are able to convince the world that even Indian made products, medical products, are made with the highest quality standards and they can be used anywhere in the world.
Right. Yeah, these are reasonably mission critical products. So
There's a life-saving, a lot of them are life-saving products.
Yeah, absolutely. So wonderful. That was wonderful. So you spoke about the fact that when you started off, a lot of material largely was coming in from elsewhere, and the reused material was being used. And I'll assume that in the total life cycle of products, even then till now, circular economy would be a factor to deal with. And you spoke about the fact that a lot of plastics which were used were like reused plastic, and that was one of the concerns of the end consumers.
Correct.
So how has this journey been? Then I think import substitution was an opportunity, but disability of producing products which are lower cost comparative to the imports would have been a challenge. So how do you deal with the supply chain challenges? Because still the dependency of plastics or material would be into imports. So make some reflections on how have you created supply chain efficiencies?
I think when you look at critical products, I think you can't compromise. And I think in medical products, there is one very important thing you have to remember is about the biocompatibility of the products.
Right. Yeah.
and you can't compromise there. So, and whenever you are changing a raw material, a critical raw material, you have to go through the full testing cycle of the product. And that is very important to maintain the quality standard or to conform to the standards.
Right.
So in that case, all critical raw materials still continue to come from overseas vendors.
Sure.
So we have currently around 60% import of our medical products or raw materials, which we can't do away with.
Sure.
Because those kind of materials are not available in
Not
India.
available, yeah.
But all other generic materials, we have tried to develop a lot of localized vendors. And gradually, I think that has kind of happened here. But I personally feel that we are still far away from that making quality plastics or quality steel or quality different alloys used in manufacturing of medical devices.
Right.
We don't get high grade medical silicon here, or products which are currently certified to be used for medical production in India, because there are no testing labs here.
Is this an opportunity for some young entrepreneurs? Like economies of scale is an issue for people to consider manufacturing what you just mentioned here, or is it their understanding of the technology to do it, or both?
I think economies of scale is a bigger issue, because I think all these materials are available in China. I think they have developed that ecosystem in the last 20 years. And I think, of course, there was somebody who started small, I'm pretty sure. And then he scaled it up.
Right.
And I think here also there's an opportunity. Today, if you need a quality steel for our needles, we don't get it in India.
Sure.
So there is an opportunity for a steel company to develop steel for medical application and then make it for Indian companies and also export to global markets.
Would this steel be an offshoot of, like there are large companies, Steel Authority of India Limited, anyway?
I think anybody could set up a plant to make high grade stainless steel or a special grade plastic which could be used. For example, we need a plastic which is good for gamma radiation.
Right.
We can't find it in India.
Right.
But somebody who can test his plastic, who makes in India, and say it is gamma stable,
right,
probably that is the market for him.
Yeah, so one thing is very sure that coming in from one of the top manufacturers of MedTech equipments, it's an opportunity getting reflected. And people who are hearing would, I'm sure, be looking at it. So coming back to one more very important point, you mentioned that in the initial days, people had concerns that are recycled plastics being used. But when I myself in our industry look back since then until now, in line with the purpose for organizations to be able to become environmentally conscious,
sustainable.
I think time has changed that. Once something which was a concern, I believe is the driving force now. So people who are using brands which are using, say, recycled material are finding preference amongst consumers. Has that also started to happen in your industry?
See, I think medical industry is very different. And I think here we can't use recycled plastics because I think we have to use virgin grade materials. I think when you are certifying a particular product for a particular use, because you have to see the drug biocompatibility.
So the impurity should not be there.
Yeah, so there should be no impurity in the device, because we are putting drugs in patients' veins, arteries, whatever, so in bodies of patients. And that kind of, structure is not available here.
Right.
But what is changing is very different. One is, can we compress the products? Can we make them smaller, like bringing in nanotechnology? So rather than using, let's say longer tubings, can we shorten them? Can we put products more closer to patients rather than putting far away from patients? So you reduce that content on the material.
Right.
Secondly is using biodegradable plastics. Today when we use PVC, for example, so they take a long time to biodegrade. And most of these products are incinerated in hospitals.
Right.
So can we use more biodegradable plastics which can be biodegradable in, let's say, 50 years, 100 years rather than thousands of years? So that momentum is coming. So today Polymed is one of the only companies in India which is using biodegradable plastics.
Wonderful.
For a lot of our products, applications, and those, of course, the products are more expensive, but I think there are people willing to pay the price for those kind of products.
Right.
And gradually, I think when we talk about environment and sustainability,
right,
I think in next 5 to 10 years, you will see a much wider use of such plastics in manufacturing.
Mandates which are starting to come in will also make the entire
Yeah, and I think the
chain.
mandate is there. Mostly the mindset is there, but the cost is an issue today.
Sure.
Because today when we look at global, let's say healthcare, providers or, NHSs of UK or insurances which provide, let's say, cost, provide money for healthcare treatments. I think they are not prepared so far.
Right.
And probably they need to incorporate in their programs these kind of sustainable products and maybe pay a little bit higher to hospitals for those products so that we can get a circular economy for these kind of products.
Yeah, it's good to hear. So design-led manufacturing is the need of the hour, and so is the case within electronics industry, which I represent.
Yes.
You started off manufacturing products and in the initial instance set a philosophy that true value to the end consumer, say the patient in this case, should be the central consideration for you to drive your manufacturing initiatives. And I'm sure since then till now, you would have gained capabilities into design, into those kind of matters also. So how do you look at your capability creation now, and how would you consider sustainability of your organization with design being in the center of your consideration and strategy?
I think we are very fortunate, that when we started, I think for us, innovation was the key. And the only acceleration we could get is only through innovation in our business.
Right.
So I think that nobody should stop in this industry.
Is there an example coming to your mind? Like, what I believe is that there are products of two categories. One are commodities where the possibility of innovation is not as much. And then, even in that case also, sustainability or say durability or safety, those kind of factors can be differentiating factors. Is there an example coming to your mind?
So there are a lot of examples I can give. And I think the most important point here is that, of course, Polymed as a company owns 400 patents.
Wow.
So if you look at any Indian company in this space, I think there's no other company which has so many different patents. And these are global, basically, global design, process patents, design patents, utility patents. And we continue to innovate every day. Because every day there is a new idea coming on the table. Because medical device is a very large universe. And when you look at this universe, there could be thousands and thousands of devices.
Right.
But every day there is a feedback coming from a user. Can you improve this? Can you make this better for me? Can you make it user friendly? Can you make it safe for the patient? Can you make it more sustainable? Can you reduce the delivery time? Can you help me not to mix the drugs? Because I want to give drugs in the right way, in the right speed, right flow rate. So there are so many innovations, ideas flowing. And in my view, only those companies will survive in this industry, will continue to innovate.
Right.
Because if you continue to make Me Too devices, at some point of time, somebody else will be maybe more smarter, more agile than you and make a cheaper product. So here, it's like an automobile industry. Every 2-3 years, or even electronics industry which you represent, every 2-3 years, you have to come out with a new model, new technology, just to excite the customer. Here, to increase patient safety, increase drug compatibility, to make it more user friendly, you need to innovate.
Yeah, I'm inquisitive. Like, if I imagine myself, fundamentally, when it comes to MedTech, as you rightly mentioned, there can be thousands of variables and SKUs. But at the very fundamental, the way I look at it is that there are things which let the caregivers do their job more easily. Say the ones which help them assist. So if you are infusing a drug into a patient, so things which assist that kind of a process is one set.
Yes.
The other set is which assists, say respiratory, process for a patient and things like that. So things which assist a patient oneself, that is second. And third, which I believe is starting to evolve, is say implants and those kind of things which will bring in proactive data from the patient or from normal people like us to be able to provide them proactive healthcare, so to say. And there can be more, but fundamental level, these would be the three.
Yes.
Where are you drawing your horizons into? Like, which is the area would you like to focus?
See, I think for us, the most important area will be drug delivery. That what best we can do, how we can improve the drug delivery mechanism, how efficiently we can give a drug to the patient. So Polymed's 95% product portfolio is based on fluid management. So any fluid going inside the patient's body or any fluid you're extracting from patient's body is what we do. So we make devices for that. Now, what we can add more is, can we add more electronic systems into that? For example, when we look at dialysis business, what we started a few years ago, now we were making only consumables.
Right.
But we looked out at the market and we were getting locked out in many contracts because where people said, do you have a dialysis machine? I said, we don't have a machine. But okay, we will try to maybe import something and put it in the market. But we couldn't compete with the big boys like Nipros or Fresenius of the world, the large players in the market who have been in the market for 30, 40 years. So we decided to develop our own machine. First time we started making a machine which had electronic parts, which had pumps, which had LCD screens, which had PCBs, and it was a nightmare.
Wonderful.
To learning everything. Yeah. But again, we didn't, let's say give it up. We said, okay, we are going to develop it. It took 4 years to develop this machine. We had to go to 100 iterations, but we developed it. And now we are going to scale up the production. So I think for every business, you have to see end to end.
Right.
That you have to be a total solution provider to a end user.
Right.
If you are giving solution in parts, I think probably you will not succeed fully. But if you give end-to-end solution from a machine to a consumable to the delivery of a drug, then I think that is where Indian companies have to start playing. Right. Not just being a product company, but being a total solution provider to a therapy.
Right. So what is the measure of the opportunity in our country? I mean, in your industry, like, is there a per capita measurement, and where are we in terms of penetration today?
See, I think we are far, far beyond.
Can I say that the unfortunate part for this matter would have been that a lot of people in the recent past would be deprived of the primary healthcare or the treatment opportunities, and has the recent initiatives, for example, Ayushman Bharat is coming to my mind, has it catalyzed access to a lot of people in some sense getting reflected on opportunities like these?
Definitely. See, in our country, healthcare was only for classes. When you go to large hospitals, the cost was very prohibitive. Yeah. And I think I compliment the current government of bringing this Ayushman Bharat into play and maybe helping to improve lives of around impacting lives of around 50 crore people. Right. And what I hear now is they are going to expand the scheme further. And certain age group of people will be covered under the scheme. So this is making healthcare more affordable. Right. And it is taking healthcare to tier 3, tier 4 cities also, which was not there. Right. If you recall, 10 years ago, people used to rush to big cities, into bigger hospitals to get treatment. But now that treatment has moved out to smaller cities. Right. Because Ayushman Bharat has made entrepreneurs to invest into smaller hospitals and treat people in tier 3 and tier 4 cities. Right. So that's a game changer according to me. Right. Also, when we see more and more manufacturing happening in the country, the cost of products will go down. Right. And because today we are 70% import dependent in this industry. So as we manufacture more and more products into the country, that will also increase affordability. Right. So we have worked on accessibility. We have created the levers for healthcare delivery to the let's say to tier 4, tier 5 cities also, smaller towns also. Right. And also with Make in India, the impetus coming from there also. Right. And government also, putting a lot of effort in purchase, procurement, localized products. Right. And of course, quality has to be there in this industry. Otherwise, you can't survive. Right. I think those are the levers for, accessible, affordable healthcare in the country.
And Himanshu, you also chair the council at CII. What are the initiatives which this industry chamber is taking specific to your industry?
I think, we can take a lot of credit out of this, partnership with CII, and government and, bringing the whole regulatory roadmap into the country. We were the only industry going to the government and say, please regulate us. Right. Because we were never regulated. And because you're not regulated, people were able to import anything and everything from anywhere without any standards, without any, I would say, regulatory, systems in place. So we went to the government, and I think CII was one of the leading organizations going to the government talking about regulatory start. So we got them implemented. CII also proposed about PLI scheme in MedTech space because it was only linked to pharma. Yeah. We said we are also an industry, we also got FDI approved 100% in this sector. Right. So a lot of interface happens with the government. And CII being an industry body, we can get a lot of cross references, whether we need assistance on trade matters, on policy, on taxation, from any help from automobile industry, any help from steel industry, or from plastic companies. So it is very easy to get that access across the industry. Yeah. Then CII also has a healthcare council, where we have health insurance sitting there, we have pharma sitting there, we also get MedTech being part of that council. So there's a lot of cross-pollination of ideas.
True. Yeah,
So
that is right.
industry bodies like that really help you to make the right policy decisions and then move to the government and give those kind of information to the government, which government is today actually far more proactive than it was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I work closely with FICCI actually, and I can't agree anymore from this particular perspective that the role of chambers, including of people like us, is very, very critical at this point of time. And you rightly mentioned that cross-pollination happens because the fundamental frameworks of the supply chain still remain the same.
Exactly.
So if you are able to learn from other sectors and catalyze this entire journey, it would be always good.
So recently we also did a stackathon, where Department of Pharma is a nodal department. So we brought all the industry together, looked at the various supply chain issues, that what each industry, so we divided industry into 10 segments. And it could be electronic, medical electronics, implants, could be consumables, could be in vitro diagnostics, and so on, and assistive devices, and so on.
Right.
So every industry we looked at the supply chain issues.
Right.
So bringing everybody together, bringing the government together in a single platform and discussing these issues and then taking it back to the government. So I think those are kind of initiatives you can take when you're part of industry chambers.
Right. Himanshu, let's shift the conversation towards like your life. So it's been 34, 35 years since then. There would be moments of success and moments of challenges. Anything particular coming to your mind where a situation came, you thought that there is no point of return from here, or it would be very difficult to go through this particular challenge? And how did you face that situation and came out of it?
See, when I left Jaipur, I was already on a point of no return, because I knew if I fail, I think I can't go back to my family business. I can't go back to my extended family.
Yes.
So to me, the only thing I could do was that I had to succeed in what I was doing.
Right.
And the only way I could have succeeded was to put everything I had into that business. Whether it was my time, my energy, my passion, everything went at the same time, because there were times where I was sleeping here in this plant for many, many days, never going back home. And we were working with the workers in the plant to work with them, to learn and to teach ourselves also that how we have to make these products. So we have gone through that emotions, gone through that process that, okay, if we don't do this, there's nothing else we can do. I'll be on the streets.
Yeah, true. So for people, when they look back in their own life and they can always attribute certain attributes of theirs to the success which they created, and some of which should never change and some should evolve, because people with time should change, and some of the attributes should never change. Yeah. What do you think would be your attributes which are consistent with time, say in last 30, 35 years since you started off, and how have you evolved with time? What has changed?
So I think to me, the most important values, I've learned from my family is about ethics and honesty. Mm-hmm. Always be ethical, always be honest. And I think that has actually taken me that far where I am today.
True.
And, I remember my grandfather writing a book, great-grandfather, and the book's name is called Seek. That means advice in English. And that book, I think there were certain things which I followed to T. And my grandfather also advising me, at some time, that when you start a business, please ensure that you always pay people in time. You always listen to your vendors. Don't treat them differently. Treat them as they're part of your own company. They are like part of your own ecosystem. And I think that really helps. So that relationship with vendors, that, honesty, treating people with honesty and trusting people. I think that actually value still continues in the organization.
Right.
And I think what has evolved is, I think, of course, from managing everything ourselves, when we started the company, and gradually, bringing in professionals, bringing in people who knew things better than us. At one point of time, we thought we knew everything.
This is the difficult part, actually.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs.
So we saw, of course, because we started the company, I can always name every brick in the factory.
True.
Because I've seen everything in front of my eyes.
Right.
But I think, bringing, people who are better than you, professionals, helping them to, grow your business together with you. And I think we are very fortunate that, people who have been around with us from last maybe 15, 20, 25 years still around with us today. And today, that is my biggest asset.
Yeah.
I'm sure those people have got many opportunities outside of this company also. But I think them sticking with us has been for me the biggest achievement of my life.
Right. What do you do? Like, how does your typical day look like? And I would be interested to know how does a week also looks like, and how does a month look like, or probably a year. How do you take a break, and what do you do to keep your mind stable and, the emotional perspectives of that?
See, I think first of all, I'm very blessed that, my family is around, and especially I thank my brothers who actually, we work together as a team. And I think we have our agreements and disagreements, but most of the times we end up in agreements.
Wonderful.
And I think that keeps us rolling. And our next gen has also, joined the business. And they've joined in very, professionally. We took a while to induct them in. And, so every week we have a meeting between the family members. And that's a routine every Friday, 2:30 to 4:30, where we discuss highs and lows of the week with the family. And so everybody presents for 15 minutes, we discuss issues. So everybody is up to speed in the business. It's not like everybody is working in silos. So that kind of, togetherness actually, gives us that momentum to do more things.
Right.
Because you are hearing from I'm the eldest, like the other brother. I have two younger brothers, and then the next generation, 3 people are there already. My 2 sons and my brother's son. But we listen to everybody. And now listening is also a very important thing.
Completely.
Yeah, because if you don't listen, I think then you can't execute.
Yes.
So I think that listening power is very important. And we start with youngest to the oldest in the presentation.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that it's not that the oldest is going to take the limelight. The youngest should get the limelight.
But we are able to convince the youngest also in this whole process.
Yeah, I hope so. But I think we are very fortunate, this new generation is also very data centric.
Completely.
So we are changing, we are evolving, learning every day, about, what data can do to the business, how AI can, so for example, last week I was learning about AI, how AI can impact our business. So, you have to learn every day. So I think for me, I spend most of my time, learning, looking at new things, new ideas, new products, new technology, what we can do more, ideating. And of course, I meet a lot of, because we are a public company, a lot of investors come and meet. So for me, from every meeting, there has to be a learning.
Right.
And that is what I have as a takeaway.
Right.
And then that takeaway would stay with me for a long time.
Right.
And, and on a typical, of course, I'm on 24/7.
Right.
Because to me, the 4,000 people, more plus
So
people.
when do you switch yourselves off? Like on 24/7 is very, very
I
difficult.
think I'm first married to work, honestly, and then to my wife or, and my family. But I think to me, the mind is always on because there's so much to do. I think, and we have very limited time.
Agreed.
And there's so much to achieve, so much to do. And when you see this business, and when I look at global companies are doing 20 billion, 15 billion revenue in this business. We are probably close to 200 million. So we're just not even 1% of maybe one company in this industry. There's so much to achieve, then the time is too short.
Yeah.
So would you like to utilize this time more in learning? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, truly yes.
And can we do more? Yes. And I think how we can compress now what we have done. So what we built in 25 years as an infra, we built the same infrastructure in 2.5 years.
Wow.
So that's the compression you can achieve. Maybe the next upgrade will happen not in 2.5 years, should happen in 1.5 years, even lesser.
Right.
So that is the power of compression, compounding, what you have to understand. And that is what is available to Indian entrepreneurs today.
Right.
The ecosystem is available. Today there is no dearth of capital for good companies, for good entrepreneurs, for even startups, there is no dearth of capital. So capital is not a constraint. In my time, capital was a constraint. Today, the only constraint is time and technology.
Right. Wonderful. So more power to you. And I think you're making a difference, and there cannot be a bigger opportunity than the responsibility of democratizing technology for larger set of people, which is what you're doing. And in this whole process, there will not be an impact only in the lives of people, but for the industry also. And I'm sure efforts like yours will make the industry itself more competitive on a global scale. This brings me to the last question. Having done what you're doing and still not tiring yourselves, and you say that you're a 24/7 person. What is that higher purpose which wakes you up every morning to do what you do?
I think the most important thing is, I think I have realized that, can we make a difference in people's lives? And I think if we can make affordable medical devices, affordable quality medical devices, I think we can make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Wonderful.
And today I see a lot of price delta between imported products, Indian products.
Right.
If we continue to excel in that area and we can reduce the cost for a lot of people. I'll just give a small example. I was in front of AIMS, during COVID times, I had to buy something or medicine for somebody in my home. I had to go personally there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I saw a lady begging in a medical shop for a clinical thermometer. That was a COVID time. She wanted for her son. The guy was not budging and not willing to sell her below 400 rupees. I personally knew that import cost was only 75 rupees.
My God.
And I said, why can't this guy who can get this product even for 100 bucks, why is he selling her for 400 bucks? Why can't he not sell her for 150 to 200 rupees, knowing that she doesn't have the money? So to me, at the end, nobody should be deprived of healthcare because of money. And if we can make that difference in people's life, I think I would have achieved my purpose in life.
Yeah, that's inspiring actually, and I wish you all the best. I think, the thought which is coming to my mind is that this quest or this purpose will consistently fuel, whatever you will do. Because if I go back in time and reflect upon one of the philosophies which was central to founder of Panasonic was Konosuke Matsushita, and in his initial years when he was thinking to himself that what should be the central purpose of his existence and his business, and when he was defining the basic business philosophy, which essentially states that recognizing our responsibilities as industrialists, we will devote ourselves for the progress and development of society and well-being of people. And I also quite often used to wonder that largely being electronics manufacturers, where does this well-being come into picture? And one of his philosophies was very inspiring, particularly to me. He used to say that technology should be like tap water. It should be available in abundance and at an affordable cost. So I would say that your thought and the very purpose, which is actually driving all what happens in your organization, in your life, is time tested. And
Yeah.
I think if that is the central thought process of people like you, then I think we will be doing greater good for a greater number. So I wish you all the best, Himanshu, for this
Thank you, Manish,
endeavor
for having
of
me.
yours. Yeah, and it was a pleasure to talk to you on this one. And as I said in the beginning, that this would be insightful. It's very inspiring for me also. And I wish you and everybody in the organization all the best for these endeavors.
Thank you so much, Manish, for having me on this
Pleasure.
show.